agree or disagree with this statement. When making decisions about new technology, my employer has my interests in mind, right? It's basically a question to say, do I think that my employer is thinking about me when they're making these decisions? A 1-point increase in that measure drives up positivity by 30% globally.
Change management, big time.
Welcome to Coffee with Mr. IoT, a weekly chat with Robert Schmidt, Deloitte's chief futurist, and the builders, dreamers, founders, and wild children of the IoT universe. This podcast can also be viewed on the Coffee with Mr. IoT YouTube channel.
Hello and welcome to Coffee with Mr. IoT. My name is Robert Schmidt, Deloitte's chief futurist, also known as Mr. IoT. Today on my show, we have Mark Cotteleer.
Nice to be here, Robert.
Executive Director of Research, Deloitte Insights, and actually we're just shifting roles, right?
Shifting roles, yep.
We're peers now, we're like totally working together.
Absolutely. Good to be with you. Good to be with you.
I thought I was with you before.
No, but now we're even closer.
Really with each other.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I wanted to spend some time today talking with you about the research that's about to come out and the research we talked about here today at the IoT Solutions World Congress in the keynote, which is about technology and positivity.
Yeah.
Yeah. I gave the summary today. I want to hear your summary.
Sure.
What's your take on what happened?
So you mean in the session or on the research?
Start with the research.
Okay. So the research is a little bit of an epiphany we had a while back, where as a research director, my team and I were looking at all that we do and observing that we are often talking about technology, but the conversation that we have is with the very top of an organization. Executives, whatever. And there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, that is a crucial.
That's our client base, basically.
That's right. It's crucial group of stakeholders. But the people that we and those client executives are asking to accept this technology when we deploy it aren't represented in that conversation. And when you look out into the marketplace, you see there are lots of perspectives about technology in general, but maybe not so many about technology in particular. So what we conceived of was what we jokingly called a fear index, but that's too negative, and you pointed that out, right? So it's really a positivity
I had a fear
index.
reaction to the fear index.
It's a positivity index where we're looking at the reactions of individuals, your man or woman on the street, if you will, and how they are feeling about the impact that specific technologies, IoT, cloud, 3D printing, blockchain, 12 different technologies we asked about, are going to have on their career prospects and on their individual lives, and also a little about familiarity, how they feel about technology in general, of course, what's their educational background, what's their organizational role, et cetera, et cetera.
So 9,500 people.
9,500
familiar
people.
with the 12 technologies
Right.
to a certain extent.
Right. 8 different countries.
8 different countries.
Yep.
Give us the highlights of
Highlight,
what was the results?
big differences, right?
Okay.
So, you were
IoT
pleased.
won.
You were pleased to know
Well, it wasn't really winning in my book, but
that
okay.
IoT
Came
is
ahead.
the most positively viewed technology in the world, at least relative to the questions that we asked. Followed closely by 3D printing, which was a little bit of a surprise, and then just behind was cloud, and then the rest of them sort of trail off. So good for IoT. What was really striking though was when we controlled for various factors, including age and gender and educational level. The overall, there were only 3 of the 12 technologies that broke 50%. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody's very negative. The negative ranges were between, let's call it 15 and 25%, and then there's a big middle band of folks that are either unsure or are neutral on the subject. Nonetheless, in terms of people making an affirmative statement that this technology will positively impact me and my career prospects, only 3 technologies broke the 50% barrier, and then they trailed on down to the end where maybe it was about 1 in 3 said it was positive. So a big range. That was number 1.
So
go ahead.
Can we stick with this for a second?
Yeah, sure.
So only 3 broke 50. I'm not even impressed with 50. Are you?
No, I'm not impressed. I don't know if I'm surprised. We expected.
Okay, true.
We wouldn't have asked the question if we didn't expect some variation. I think what was interesting and at the global level was the magnitude of the variability. So from sort of low 30s to mid 50s, that's a 20%, that's a 20-point swing. And in individual countries, it can be even wider than that. Um, I think that is impressive. I was a little bit surprised that the numbers weren't higher, but if you think about it, there's a lot of change we're asking, and there's a lot of change we're asking people for, and human beings are not notorious for their love of change and the unknown.
I had an interesting conversation in one of my interviews, and the question was something to the effect of, how many applications have you seen using those technologies, and do you think the result would have been different if you would have asked about the application? And what occurred to me, and I want to ask you, I have another fantasy. I know you don't like the word fantasies, but
okay. No, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah.
I have a fantasy that actually my analogy was this. If I give people the question, how do you like touchscreens? I think they'd be like, blah. If I tell them, how do you like your touchable iPhone, Android, and phones, they'd say, yeah, I love them. Yeah. So the application of the touchscreen people like. It's not about the technology. So if I take that to IoT, cloud, not sure what to do with 3D printing, but all of those, I think people are using that.
Yeah,
people are using cloud. People are seeing thermostats that are smart and connected. They see IoT pieces. What do you think about this? Do you think there's a relation to how applied it is?
Yeah, I think.
I know we don't have hard data.
No. Well, I mean, it's a hypothesis that we could test.
Exactly.
So as a researcher, I'm like, well, let's go get the data. But what I will say is that what you're pointing at is something that we have learned, over the years, and that we're well acquainted with in the firm, which is people don't really buy technology, they buy solutions. And so if someone wanted to criticize the research on that basis, I think that's totally fair. We often talk about technology, so I think it's still a relevant question. But
I'm totally not criticizing the research. I was really kind of curious.
Right. Yeah, so our clients and people buy solutions. And so I have no doubt that if we asked about solutions, the answers would be different. Now, it would be interesting because I don't know how people would feel about, let's take predictive maintenance, right? Killer app for IoT, right? Predictive maintenance. I don't know how people are going to react. I mean, some people I would think that I have a great impact on my career. Some people might not. And so, maybe what you're suggesting is the next vector of pursuit. What we also know, though, and it's funny because I just came out of a panel that we ran on smart factories, and we're doing a lot of work, as you know, we're doing a lot of work in smart factories. And one of the big points that came up during that panel discussion, and we were with lots of our clients, was around how this really is, even though we're a factory and we're implementing technology, this really is a human effort. And so the conversation about personas and building personas in whatever implementation environment we're talking about is really important. So it's not, I'm going to impose predictive maintenance on the shop floor. I'm going to develop a persona for a shop floor maintenance manager. And I'm going to think about what are the pain points of that person's, from their perspective, what are the pain points that they face in their daily life, executing their mission, and how can we bring technology to bear on addressing that problem more favorably for them. So, addressing the behavioral implications and the essential humanness of the target audience, I think, is really important.
You made an observation out of the very first analysis where you said like the top 3 were above 50, then they were below, and then trailing was blockchain.
Yep.
But you made an observation which said digital technologies are further up than physical technologies.
Yeah. Yes.
And so talk a little bit about this.
Yes.
What's your take on that?
So first of all, I want to be really clear. We're not imposing a value judgment. So blockchain came in at the bottom. That doesn't mean blockchain is bad. In the case of blockchain, I think it suggests that there's a lot of market confusion. People aren't quite sure about it, and I think that's showing up. But the observation that you're pointed to was pretty clear. Of the 12 technologies that we looked at, and we talk about at Deloitte, we talk about physical to digital, back to physical. So we recognize that there is digital or IT information technology, and there's physical or operations technology. And 5 of the 12 technologies that we looked at were clearly physical: 3D printing, drones, self-driving cars, industrial robots, and then self-driving vehicles that aren't automobiles. Of the 12, of those 5, 3D printing or additive manufacturing ranked number 2. I love additive manufacturing, everybody knows it, so I was very happy about that. All of the other physical technologies clustered near the bottom of the list. And the positivity range for them was, say, in the high 30s to maybe the mid 40s, which suggests to us that people are more hesitant about the deployment of physical technologies than digital technologies. And I think that's interesting.
I want to highlight one thing, and you can explain this better than I do, but one of the things I didn't realize is while these were people that we surveyed with that had familiarity, these weren't technologists. And yet, the variance, the error rate was less than 1% up or down, which to me, what you were telling me is that this is pretty representative of people all around us. Is that true?
Yeah. So, and I mean, the design of the research was as such. So, first of all, we went with what we would call a large N, right? We got lots of observations. And if you look at the statistical design of these things, if you go, we had 1,000 responses from every country, that'll be, and distributed a general population study. And so that'll get us in general to within plus or minus 2%. Now, as a result of some of the other statistical methods that we use, we're able to get a pretty sharp focus. There is an error band around there. There's always going to be. But we're pretty sure that this is accurate. The other thing I'll point out
is
that
we're doing better than on any sort of other polling that gets done.
I will say that I feel pretty good that we understand how these technologies are perceived. This data we got in October, that we feel pretty good about where we stand. Now, what'll be interesting is if we choose to do this over time to see, do those attitudes shift? Do they shift in response to maybe the news? What have you? I think there's an interesting set of questions that can fall out of this as we go forward.
This was going to be my last question, but I'll ask it now because you said, well, we might do it over time. How can we improve? These numbers aren't great.
Oh, well, I think what you think about that depends on where you sit. So, and by that I mean, last week I've been very involved with America Makes, which is the National Additive Manufacturing Innovation Institute. They are great friends of ours in the 3D printing advanced manufacturing space, and they are also an entity, let's call it. They're a public-private partnership, so they're funded by the United States government with a specific mission to promote additive manufacturing. So they look at those numbers, and we talk to that community, and it's all about what are the policy and investment choices that the Department of Energy, the Department of Defense, the U.S., the federal government, the state governments, and corporations, what are the things that we need to do in order to raise the profile? That may be training programs, that might be a charm offensive somehow, that might, public relations, what have you. I think that, and every country can ask that question. We have data on every country. The other things we can do, though, is it is very clear from the data that there are 2 major drivers of positivity. One has to do with the individual. And that is, we measure their individuals' perception of their own ability to learn about and use new technology. That was one question we asked. And then the other one was there's sort of innate excitement about new technologies. It turns out those are very correlated, so we kind of put them in one thing. But a 1-point increase in that on a 5-point scale, a 1-point increase in that level of engagement, personal engagement with technology, will drive the probability that you perceive a technology positively up 121%. So the first thing that we can do is help people understand and generate excitement, because I don't think that's necessarily just innate, but help them understand and bring excitement to drive up the probability that they will be excited about what's coming. That's number one.
Is experience part of that too?
I think it is. I mean, so some people will be innately excited. Some people, what we know is that people, when they get experience with technology, hands-on, their excitement and engagement around it goes up. That's pretty well established in the literature. So we need to be providing opportunities, in my opinion, we need to be providing opportunities I mean, inside Deloitte for our staff and for our clients and for our communities to engage with technology. That will increase because it'll eliminate some of the fear, uncertainty, and dread around this thing. So that's number one. Number two is the perception that the employer cares. So we ask a simple question, agree or disagree with this statement. When making decisions about new technology, my employer has my interests in mind, right? It's basically a question to say, do I think that my employer is thinking about me when they're making these decisions? A 1 point increase in that measure drives up positivity by 30% globally.
Change management, big time.
I think not just change management around an implementation. Certainly, that's important. But I think building a general culture that shows some genuine concern, because we didn't ask, about a specific technology or specific thing. We asked in general, do I think my employer cares about me? And those people that said yes were much more able to, much more willing to claim positivity about technology. And that is something that I think we can directly influence every day in our organizations.
So that was the research.
Yeah.
You haven't released the insight itself yet. We're just giving a teaser. I kind of pulled it out of you. You were almost not letting it go because we wasn't quite ready, but we came here. So I appreciate that, by the way.
We did this in preparation for this conference, but the data we only got 3 weeks ago. It's very fresh, and so we want to be sure that we get the numbers all right.
When can people expect it?
I'm thinking we will be talking about this over the next couple of months. Certainly, we're happy to talk about it with clients, and we're happy to talk about it publicly as we have here before today. I'm thinking it'll probably be early in the new year that we're able to actually get this thing out and really, have a report that we can look at. I think the key question is, what do we do next? And that's what I'm really excited about. I think this is a conversation that can go on for a while.
So early in the new year, and for now, we're going to put a card up top, linked back to the blog we wrote about it on LinkedIn.
Go back to the blog.
And please contact us.
We can certainly do a few more blogs if people are interested, and we can go from there.
Yeah. Link up there. Comments down there. Looking forward to that.
Perfect.
I want to shift with you a little bit. You have a very interesting history before you joined Deloitte and what you did at Deloitte.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about it.
Sure. So I spent about half my career in academia and half my career in professional services.
You were a literal professor.
I was a literal professor. Yeah, I did my doctorate at the Harvard Business School in Technology and Operations Management. Did a little graduate work at University of Michigan, a little undergraduate work at Marquette University, with whom I'm very close. Taught at Marquette and the University of Chicago, supply chain guy. Started my career, early in my career, worked at 2 other competitors to Deloitte. Came to Deloitte as a research manager 7 years ago. Led the Center for Integrated Research, which was focused on cross-sector, global cross-sector research. Tremendous opportunity. Had a lot of fun working with some great colleagues, both in the practice and on our team. And now I'm transitioning into the market, really trying to chase that opportunity into the market, because honestly, it's so exciting what we're doing in this space with IoT, smart factory, digital supply networks. I just think it is a generational opportunity for us, and so I'm very excited to be chasing it.
I got to ask you, being a professor for a while, what was really preparing you for your job, and what was actually not? What are the things that really benefited you, and what are the things you feel like you had to drop?
That's a great question. Honestly, I would say storytelling is the preparation that I got as an academic. And I've always been an applied researcher anyway, so I've never been super theoretical. I'm always interested in how does this actually impact the business. I've always loved business, corporations, and so the ability to take data and tell a story with it, and the training that I receive in collecting that data and letting that data tell its story, and then translating that in words that people can understand, that has been a huge benefit. What is different, and what I've had to let go of, is the speed with which change happens. And that's a blessing and a curse, by the way, because you want to be right, but I always say the academic if you think about the justice system, there's criminal justice and there's civil justice. In academia, we had the criminal standard, which is beyond a reasonable doubt. In business research, we have what I'll claim is the civil standard, which is a preponderance of the evidence. And so we want to be sure, but we need to move fast because we need to get from insight to action very quickly. Our clients demand that, and we demand it. But the good news is that we have systems in place, agile systems in place where we can, think big, start small, scale fast, right? So we're able to have the big thought, we're able to get to a proof of value very quickly in the work that we're doing, and then and adjust from there where we need to, and then when it works, we can go. And that's really, I think, a blessing to us in the way that we go about the work. But it would never be tolerated in a in a A-level academic journal. It's just not different audiences, different demands, different approaches.
So if I understand you correctly, if I say this back, sometimes you find we make decisions quicker than you would have made in academia because of market moving, and we don't have all the facts to prove beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah, I mean, I would say we draw conclusions more quickly because we have to, because our clients and the market need us to.
So are you telling me my impatience would have killed me in academia?
I will not draw conclusions as to your probable success in academia, Robert. I will say that you are incredibly successful at what you do, and we are fortunate to have you doing this. So if you want to test the waters in academia, I'll be glad to make a few introductions.
No, I'm okay where I'm at. I was just laughing. So, but is that sort of like the idea, that there is more research that goes in, there's more sort of like proof points and so forth around that you sort of had
more
to sort
rigor,
of like...
more replication. And I think that the question is what is good enough to draw. It's not good or bad. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm saying that there are different KPIs, if you will, and therefore we have different approaches.
So you gave me a minute before I had to close. So I'm going to use the minute for give me a 1 minute, your best 1 minute story.
Oh my gosh. On anything?
Anything.
My best 1 minute story is that I bought a fishing boat last weekend, and I could not be more excited. This sticky little fishing boat that's going to change my summer next summer. That's my best 1 minute story.
I love it.
I'm excited about the future here. I think that I see a lot in the market. As I said before, I think that we have a generational opportunity to impact and change through the strong work that we've done in IoT, industrial IoT, Industry 4.0, smart factories, digital supply networks, whatever you want to call it. I think that we have just an extraordinary opportunity, and I'm just very excited to continue to chase this into the market, to serve our clients, and to deliver some big value for everyone.
Well, I got to tell you, I have a new fantasy, and my fantasy is that having you close as part of our team is going to give me a chance to get more research because I love numbers to a certain extent. Yep. So I'm glad to have you. Thanks for being on the show.
It's my pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Coffee with Mr. IoT. To subscribe or to listen to more episodes, search for Coffee with Mr. IoT in your favorite podcatcher, or find us online at deloitte.com/us/coffee with Mr. IoT. To watch the video version of our show, go to YouTube and search Coffee with Mr. IoT.